monster scored back. Before Mannerly could avoid it, her mother had flipped up the loose tunic. She gave an inarticulate exclamation. "You'll need numbweed on some of those." Mannerly pulled away. "What good's a beating, then, if it's numbed away first chance?" And she dashed out of the hall. Much Mavi cared if she hurt anyhow, except that a sound body works harder and longer and faster. Her thoughts and her misery spurred her out of the hold, every swinging stride she took jarring her sore back. She didn't slow down because she had the whole long track in front of the hold to go. The faster she went, the better, before some auntie wanted to know why the children were out of lessons so soon, or why Mannerly was going green picking instead of teaching. Fortunately, she encountered no one. Everyone was either down at the dock cave unloading or making themselves scarce to the seaholders' eyes so they wouldn't have to. Mannerly charged past the smaller holes, down a ways on the marsh road, then up the right-hand track south of the half-circle. She put as much distance between herself and Seahold as she could, all perfectly legitimate, in search of greenery. As she jogged along the sandy footpath, she kept her eyes open for fresh growth, trying to ignore the occasional rough going when she'd jar her whole body. Her back began to smart. She gritted her teeth and paced on. Her brother, Aleni, had once said that she could run as well as any boy of the hold, and outdistance the half of them on a long race. If only she had been a boy. Then it wouldn't have mattered if Teteron had died and left them harperless. Nor would Janus have beaten a boy for being brave enough to sing his own songs. The first of the low marsh valleys was pink and yellow, with blooming sea beach plum and marshberry, slightly blackened here and there, more from the low-flying queens catching the odd thread that escaped the main wings. Yes, and there was the patch that the flamethrower had charred, the one thread infestation that had gotten through. One day, Mannerly told herself, she'd just throw open a window's steel shutters and see the dragon's charring thread in the sky. What a sight that must be, for certain. Fearful, too, she reckoned, having seen her mother treat men for thread burn. Why, the mark looked as if someone had drawn a point-deep groove with a red-hot poker on the man's arm, leaving the edges black with singed skin. Torley would always bear that straight scar, puckered and red. Thread score never healed neatly. She had to stop running. She'd begun to sweat heavily, and her back was stinging. She loosened her tunic belt, flapping the soft run-a-beast hide to send cooling drafts up between her shoulder blades. Past the first marsh valley, up over the rocky hump hill into the next valley. Cautious going here. This was one of the deep, boggy places. No sign of yellow-veined grasses. There had been a stand last summer 2 humpy hills over. She heard them first, glancing up with a stab of terror at the unexpected sounds above. Dragons? She glanced wildly about for the telltale gray glitter of sky-born thread in the east. The greeny-blue sky was clear of that dreaded fogging, but not of dragon wings. She heard dragons? It couldn't be. They didn't swarm like that. Dragons always flew in ordered wings, a pattern against the sky. These were darting, dodging, then swooping and climbing. She shaded her eyes. Blue flashes, green, the odd brown, and then, of course, sun glinted golden off the leading dart-like body. A queen! She expelled the breath she'd been holding in her amazement. A fire lizard queen? It had to be. Only fire lizards could be that small and look like dragons. Whirrs certainly didn't, and whirrs didn't mate midair. And that's what Meneley was seeing. The mating flight of a fire lizard queen, with her bronzes in close pursuit. So fire lizards weren't boy talk. Awed, Meneley watched the swift, graceful flight. The queen had led her swarm so high that the smaller ones, the blues and greens and browns, had been forced down. They circled now at a lower altitude, struggling to keep the same direction as the high flyers. They dipped and dashed in mimicry of the queen and bronzes. They had to be fire lizards, thought Meneley, her heart almost stopping at the beauty and thrill of the sight. Fire lizards! And they were like dragons, only much, much smaller. She didn't know all the teachings for nothing. A queen dragon was gold. She mated with the bronze who could outfly her, which was exactly what was happening right now with the fire lizards. Oh, they were beautiful to behold. The queen had turned sunward, and Meneley, for all her eyes were very long-sighted, could barely pick out that black mote and trailing cluster. She walked on, following the main group of fire lizards. She'd bet anything that she'd end up on the coastline near the dragon's